There's a version of you that existed before you got good at the rooms you're in now. That version said things you wouldn't say today, held positions longer than was comfortable, trusted their own discomfort as information worth listening to. You probably think of them with some embarrassment, a little unformed, not yet calibrated. But calibrated to what exactly? And by who? In August 1971, 24 college students walked into a basement at Stanford University, screened carefully, paid $15 a day. They knew it was an experiment, signed the forms, asked the questions, understood what they were getting into. It didn't change anything. Think about the last meeting you stayed quiet in, not because you had nothing to say, because something in the room made the cost of speaking feel higher than the cost of silence. You didn't calculate that consciously. You just felt it, adjusted, moved on. You probably called it reading the room. That's what the students thought too. The psychologist running the experiment was Philip Zimbardo. His question wasn't, are people good or bad? That wasn't interesting to him. His question was simpler, more unsettling. Does it even matter? He divided the students by a coin flip. Half became guards, uniforms, mirrored sunglasses chosen specifically so prisoners couldn't see their eyes. Half became prisoners, smocks, a chain around one ankle and numbers. Not names, numbers. Then he had the prisoners arrested at their homes, real police cars, real handcuffs, neighbors watching from doorways. By the time they arrived at the basement, something had already shifted, and nobody had done anything yet. On day 2, the guards were waking prisoners at 2 a.m. for roll call. Nobody told them to. It wasn't in the instructions. It emerged from the logic of the uniforms, the sunglasses, the quiet discovery that no one was going to stop them. One prisoner started screaming uncontrollably. Zimbardo's team assumed he was performing, put him back in. He wasn't performing. The other prisoners thought he was. They resented him for it. His falling apart was making things harder for everyone else. They'd been inside for 36 hours. You've felt that resentment. You know the colleague who keeps pushing back after the room has moved on. The friend who says the thing out loud that was supposed to stay internal. The irritation rises before you've thought about it. The wish that they'd just kept quiet. You didn't decide to feel that. Something produced it in you, and through you, it enforced itself on someone else, and nobody planned any of it. Next day, the guards began giving certain prisoners small privileges, better food, less harassment, then removing them without explanation. Watch what this does to a person. The rules kept shifting without warning. So the prisoners stop pushing against the system entirely and start studying it, watching for moods, mapping who was lenient this morning, who wasn't, constantly adjusting to a room that kept moving. 6 months later, you'd call that political intelligence. 2 years later, you'd call it wisdom. You'd be promoted for it. You'd teach it to people younger than you. By day 5, one prisoner asked to speak to a lawyer, not to end the experiment, to file a formal grievance through proper channels in the institution's own language. He wasn't broken. He wasn't confused. He'd simply gotten so fluent in the rules of the room that he could no longer see the room itself. The cage had become the whole world, and inside it, he was thriving, articulate, strategic, effective. Zimbardo watched this and felt something he later struggled to describe. Not satisfaction that the experiment was working, something closer to dread. But Zimbardo wasn't watching from the outside anymore. Somewhere in the previous 5 days, he had stopped being a researcher watching a simulation. Instead, he became the superintendent of a prison. He, himself, had become part of the experiment. When a colleague arrived to observe, another psychologist, fresh eyes, seeing it for the first time, She walked through the basement and told him he needed to shut it down immediately. He got angry with her, not defensive. Angry. She was an outsider. She didn't understand how things worked here. It took him a full day to see what had happened to him. He shut it down on day 6, 2 weeks early. The easy version of this story is about cruelty, about what people do when they're given power over others. That reading the room lets you off the hook. It's a story about guards, about authority, about other people in unusual circumstances. The harder version is this. The guards didn't decide to become controlling. The prisoners didn't decide to become compliant. Zimbardo didn't decide to lose himself in a role. None of them felt it happening. Each small adjustment felt like nothing. Appropriate, reasonable, just reading the room. The room was running an experiment on all of them, and none of them knew they were subjects. Zimbardo followed up with several students years later. Most felt fine within days of leaving, back to their names, their clothes, their sense of themselves. But some described something that had stayed. An automatic scan before speaking in a group. A small internal check, so fast it barely registered as thought. Is this version of me okay for this moment? They didn't install that. Nobody handed it to them. The basement did. And then the basement was gone, and it stayed anyway. The study was never replicated. Ethically, it couldn't be. But it didn't need to be. These conditions are already everywhere. Every office where someone learned what opinions cost too much. Every dinner table with its own unspoken rules about what can be said. Every family with its own traditions. Every group chat with its own gravity. Every room where belonging matters and the rules are never written down. You're in one. Maybe you've been in several today. And in each of them, without signing anything, without a coin flip, without a psychologist watching from the corner, you've been learning what works, shedding what doesn't, getting good at the room. Here's the question Zimbardo left open. Not who has power, not what people do when no one's watching. Those questions have answers, and the answers are depressing but familiar. His question was deeper than that. When you walk out, when the room empties, when there's no one left to calibrate for, who shows up? And is that who you were before the rooms got to you?